today. That is, I'm going to talk about the usage-based theory, all right, and mostly if you see there that according to Thomas, the use-based theory, to linguistic communication may be summarized into aphorism. Okay, meaning is used and structure emerges from use. But actually, I'm going to just take you now a little bit of its background, here. This is actually the lecture you can see, from Professor Jill Niami, and she was actually a PhD student there. Okay, I just have to skip it there, but you can yourself read it so that you can understand what does the statement mean. And this is actually the photograph of Chomsky. You can see it. Chomsky, he was a big man, and he was a revolutionary man in the field of linguistics. So we can say that Chomsky, he's really done superb, and he rather revolutionized actually the linguistic field. So therefore we can see that Chomsky has done a lot. Um, Let me just tell you something there, all right? You can see that, like any other type of learning, language learning is not a linear process. Remember, language, I mean, it's not an easy process. It's not like the language learning does not take place like, um, any other field in a straight way, but it's a very complex phenomenon, therefore it cannot be deemed as predictable. So linear process means a thing which goes in a linear fashion. So it's many models of SLA. Some model of SLA, I mean, they may be linear, but so for language learning is concerned, it's not. Is Larson Freeman? He is another scholar and another expert, and another scholar, that is Long, state that there are at least 40 theories, okay, of SLA, but here we mention those one which have caused more impact in the field of SLA, as well as pre, okay, and then we have to just look at them as pre and Chomskyan approaches. All right. These are actually the different books. You can see that theories and second language acquisitions, in introduction. You can search this book yourself. Alternative approaches to second language acquisitions. Still, you can just go for this book as well. Second language acquisition, an introductory course, second language, you can just go for that. That can help you there. Susan M. Gates is the writer, and Decoding Chomsky, Silence and Revolutionary Politics. This is actually a book written on Chomsky, because Chomsky, as I said, he is a very influential figure, and he has done tremendous services to linguistics. But before we actually come to usage-based theory of linguistics, we have to just talk about a little bit about this universal grammar and late. Well, in the field of linguistics, after the nativist, okay, nativist, who are the nativists? Who claims that children are born with some linguistics knowledge. The people who believe that children are born actually with their with inborn linguistic knowledge, is termed actually as nativist. All right, and and who are the empiricist? They're the people. Remember, these are the terms which quite frequently come, you see, in the linguistics. All right, you must have been hearing these terms there. And the empiricists, they assert. Remember, who are the empiricists? They assert children acquire language from linguistic experience, from their exposure. Something questioned in Chomsky minds, okay? But Chomsky, obviously, when actually, if I have just discussed this thing with you people, that when B.F. Skinner in verbal behaviors based his behaviorism theories, and they concluded that language learning actually comes as a result of is a result of exposure to the environment, and stimulus and response theory was very much there. So and then as a challenge, Chomsky actually raised objections on it, and then something questioned in Chomsky mind, and what was that? All right. Obviously, Chomsky, he wanted to ask a question that if everything comes from exposure and environment, then he talks about late creations. Okay. In certain situations in which child is not presented with any consistent linguistics model, they appear to have the capacity to invent. Remember, I mean, the child is, as we said, that the children, they are, the children, they are genetically pre-programmed to acquire language. So, I mean, they have the capacity already to invent some aspects of language. This give insight for Chomsky innate of language. All right. Originally, he puts forward language acquisition device to refer to innate mechanism of language learning, and late he illustrates UG, universal grammar, is a way to introduce his idea. Okay. Chomsky believes, remember, Chomsky believes that UG is a spatial device of human brain which can help people learn language quickly. All right. It is in unconscious. I mean, what is it, my dear? Sorry for a little bit distractions. I haven't taken tea, so I'll also be taking tea actually, and will be giving you lecture as well. So it is an unconscious and potential, remember, potential knowledge which exists in the human brain without learning and determines the existence of human language. So Chomsky believes that UG, that is a spatial device, all right, which is wired actually in the human mind, and it is unconscious and potential, and it has, the power of generating knowledge. Okay. And without any learning actually from our, and which actually determines the there is something universal, which determines the human language, right? Now you see here, universal grammar, UG. The theory suggests that, now look at this. The theory suggests that linguistic ability manifests itself without being taught, and that there are properties that all natural human languages share. It is a matter of observation and experimentation to determine precisely what abilities are innate and what properties are shared by all language. It has superbly been defined here. I think you have to just look at this. This universal grammar theory, it tells that there is a capacity, there is some knowledge which is innate. There is linguistic ability, we term in simple terms, linguistic ability, which manifests, which shows itself without being taught, and that these are properties that all natural human language share. I mean, you can see that these linguistics, properties, and this linguistic ability, it shows and manifests. We cannot see it, as we said that in the beginning, that it is unconscious, but potential. And how can we know it? I mean, we can see that through observation and experimentation to determine precisely what abilities are innate and what properties are shared by all. And you can find the same thing there actually in all languages, because many experiments have been done from across actually the languages of the world. There, that what kind of word the student, they produce in the initial stages of their life. They have been explained, if you remember. Different linguistic stages are there. Okay, and then briefly, since this is not the lecture of the day, that we to get focused more on UG and UG, because there a lot has been said actually on it. Today's lecture is actually usage-based theory by Tomasello, and we have to just look at that. But my dear student, but a little bit background has been shared here in order to refresh your thoughts and your knowledge there. Okay, so what is SLA and why it is? What is SLA and why it is important? All right, we have to just talk on it. SLA becomes a field in its own right since 1960. Okay, the study of SLA focuses on developing knowledge and the use of language by children. Okay, and the use of language by children and adults who already know at least one other language. In 1980, remember, it is possible to read nearly everything that has been written about SLA theory and related studies to keep up with the newest current ideas. Okay, my dear, then there was a logical problem with SLA and learnability problem. Okay, many linguists, they are researching on that whether UG are available to L2 learning or not. This is a debatable issue still. Many researchers, they are doing researches on it, whether UG is available for the learning of second language or not. So with regard to SLA, the question is more complicated. On one hand, the first language is available to L2 learner. On the other hand, the end result of L2 learning is not native-like competence, as it is the case in L2 acquisition. So we can say that the first language, L1, is different than L2. So the native likeness competence is not available in the case of 2. So thus, other research mainly focuses on the extent that L2 learners have access to the innate system, right? Some other research mainly focuses that L2 learners have access to the innate system, and they have obviously some access to the innate system, especially the concept of principle and parameters. This is the principle and parameters have been explained to you people, and I hope that they are not to be used here. All right, then I'm to quickly, because my basic lecture today, that is music-based theory, different types of hypotheses, okay, to innate system. The first hypothesis, that is direct accessibility. If UG can be used in the first language, so it also can be applied in L2 learning. All right, L2 learner makes full use of UG. This is one theory, including the part which is not reflected in his mother tongue. Means even the part which is not reflected in his mother tongue, that can also be accessed. This is one theory. And second theory, that is indirect accessibility, usually works in Italy through the grammar of mother tongue. Through the grammar of mother tongue, usually works when the parameter setting of L2 is different from that of the first language. So L2 learner cannot use the parameter which has been lost actually in UG. And then the inaccessibility hypothesis. It denies all the influence of UG on SLA, assuming that the parameters of UG have been set in the process of first language, which cannot be reset in the second. So you can see that researches are still going on it. Some people say that even the learners of second language acquisition have direct access to the UG. Some people say no, that the direct access is not possible, but the native speakers, they have got only the indirect access to the UG. And another hypothesis means that it altogether denies all the influence of UG on second language acquisitions. Okay, so my dear, the problem of UG in SLA, it's very important. You have to just look at that. As L1 acquisitions is natural in unconscious. We all are aware of it, while SLA is conscious, because when we are learning second language, we become conscious. Cognitive ability of children is immature, while that of adult is mature. You see, when the children, they learn, but I think they learn superbly, all right. And especially the same thing, though the mind mature, but still the speed of learning is not happening that way, is as it happens in the first language acquisitions. Okay, and then the environment of L1 acquisition and that of are different. You see, you are naturally exposed to the linguistic environment in the first language acquisition, while in second language acquisitions, sometimes you may not be exposed to the natural environment that is highly learned. That is high learning environment, and different inputs. L1 inputs occur through spoken language, while L2 input is mingle of spoken, written, as well as notation. Okay, means that L2 basically involves almost many things. Okay, but in N1 inputs only spoken language. Only the children actually, they are exposed to the spoken language, and if the children are exposed to 7 structurally different languages, still they can be picking them with ease. All right. And in L1 acquisition, there is no interference from other language, but L2 learners uses mother tongue constantly. I know, yes, is the lecturer no, says, I know you are bored, but be patient, and please. You have to be patient, okay? Because patience is highly required, please. I'm requesting you there. And this psycholinguistics, remember, this is a technically really complicated field. It requires patience. It requires effort on your part, and you will be doing the best. All right. Sorry for taking a little bit past here. I am still continuing, and now My dear students, the lecture of the day, and that I have just is I just said that I have even shared with you people uh, these handouts and these things from here, uh, because this is a little bit important. That's why I have just um, decided to teach it from here. Okay, and now what is usage-based approaches to SLA? You have to look at this. The usage-based theory of language acquisition was introduced by Michael Tomasello, all right, in 2003. So according to him, this is an input-based learning. You have to just look at this. This is what? This is, my dear, this is input-based learning. Okay, this is what? This is input-based learning, and various approaches to to SLA can be labeled is usage-based. All right. Uh, this is actually the new psychology of language. Uh, this is from this gentleman. You see the okay, edited by Michael Tomasello. All right. Now we come actually to the usage-based or exemplar-based prototypes learning. Okay. Mm, you should keep in mind, as I have told you in the very beginning, that there is a book of psycholinguistics which has been written by Insep Taylor, and she has explained almost everything. If you are further interested to know psycholinguistics in detail, so that is the best book. You can go for that, and you can find that book will that book will believe me, will give you a great insight into the psycholinguistics. And I think by now you must have bought that book indeed. But I think if you haven't bought it yet, please go for that. And that these prototypes and everything has been explained over there. So, but anyhow, here I'm going to little bit explain this prototype. Prototype means a kind of sample, a kind of pattern, which just is just before you, is a model in front of, and you just try to follow that, and you are actually following some of the features of the prototypes there. All right, much of our language use is formulaic. All right, means that we recycle. All right, we recycle means like any mathematical, you have a formula, and that formula is applied, uh, you see, for making different expression, and for solving different actually for solving different different things. Okay, and different other questions and sums. So we have to memorize from prior use. So language learning is in large parts implicit. Implicit means which cannot be felt, all right? In the sense of taking place without the learning being consciously aware of it. Means the language actually, though we see and hear it in the physical form, but actually it is also linked to the unconscious part of our brain, which we don't see. We do not have the ability to see that. So therefore, we can say that language basically is implicit and nature. All right. Therefore, without the learner, they do not know what is exactly happening. They are not aware of the process. They are not conscious of, but just a phenomenon is happening. All right. According to UB theory, language structure emerges, okay, from language use. All right. Children build their language. See, this is very clear. Their language relying on their general cognitive skill. Okay, mostly they just pick them up. And their cognitive skill are very important over there. Okay, see here, this is the human mind. Okay, and now we move on to the UB main hypothesis. UB approaches assume that all language knowledge, remember, is constructed on the basis of input. So the UB main usage-based hypothesis, stresses actually on, stretches, stretch, stretches actually on it. Stresses, sorry, UB approaches assume that all language knowledge is constructed on the basis of input. Means stress is placed on an input. Input is given and then output is there. And learning take place implicitly during meaning focused input processing. Okay. Another, the relationship between quantity and quality, all right, of input is important. How much qualitative input is given, all right, because the input to which adult two learners are exposed to is fundamentally different in both quantity and quality from L1 input, which is typically available to. So again, the point is raised here that the input given to the young children for learning their first languages is different from the input given to the adults for learning their second languages. Okay. um UB main principles and theoretical basis. You have to just look at that. What is its theoretical basis? According to Tomasino, 2003, the usage-based approach to linguistic communication may be summarized in two principles, which I have just said it before. All right, the meaning is use. All right, and structure emerges from the use. All right, the first principle represents how people use linguistic conventions to achieve social ends. Okay, and the second principle represented how meaning-based grammatical constructions emerge from individual acts of language use. So, combining the two approaches, my dear, Tomasillo proposed, Tomasillo proposed a usage-based theory of language acquisition. He stated, my dear student, he stated that children acquire language equipped with two sets of cognitive skills. Okay, what are those cognitive skills? The first, that is intention reading. Okay, what children must do to determine the goals or intentions of mature speaker when they use linguistics conventions to achieve them. I mean, remember, the children, they try to in the intention reading actually, in this cognitive skill, they try to know the intentions of mature speakers, okay, when they use their linguistic conventions to achieve the social ends. All right, so, and second principle of actually this is that what children must do in order to extract abstract linguistic construction from the individual utterances. I mean, they try to, they try to farm out, they try to construct such, linguistic construction from the individual utterances, okay, on the basis of abstractions. Okay, therefore we can say that this theory has two main dimensions: functional, all right, and grammatical. All right, okay, and further we move that main approaches of UB to SLA. Remember, and these are the main approaches of usage based theory to SLA. Exposure to input is necessary for SLA. Exposure is must. A good deal of SLA happens incidentally. Remember, this happens incidentally. A good deal of SLA happens and learners come to know more than what they have been exposed to in the input. They try to they learn more than what input is given to them, and learners output speech often follows predictable paths with predictable stages. So here, though in the beginning we just talk about that, that UG, the hypothesis that some people say it is directly available to the native speaker for the second languages. Some say that it is indirectly available, and the third say that it all not available. And so in predictable acquisitions of given structure. and SLA is variable across linguistic subsystems. Okay. Notable points about this, this UB theory of SLA. First, one must always begin with communicative functions. Remember, actually, it begins with the communicative functions. Okay, so even in early months of age, humans infants communicate in some fairly sophisticated way. Exemplification by pointing. All right, Iba, Razi, it's okay. And second, when we turn to children's early linguistic communication, the most basic unit of linguistic experience is not the word but the utterance. All right, it's not. You see, you cannot actually. You cannot say that with full guarantee that whatever the child is going to, or whether to rightly pronounce the word, but the real thing which matters at that stage, that is actually the utterance. Okay. And third, based on the theory, a linguistic construction is prototypically a unit of language that comprises multiple linguistic elements used together for a relative, coherent communicative functions. Okay, and finally, the key theoretical point is that when we conceptualize children's early grammatical competence, we see that SLA acquisition processes needed are not so different from those we need in L1 wording. Okay. Then there are some common misunderstanding about this theory. At the heart of most misunderstanding is the idea that usage-based analysis only do numbering, crunching, with too much of focus on the effects that frequency of constructions. Okay, means the construction are frequently repeated, another cosplays in the learning process. But remember, no usage-based theorist would claim that frequency is the only factor impacting SLA. Alright? In fact, there is a lively debate among usage-based theorists about the exact role frequency effects play in the complex network. You can see that you just find and can see that the debate still going on there, right? Nothing can be said, but with perfect faith, but still we can say that actually the debate is going on there. Some objections to UB theory. Remember, the three most common objections, they are on UB, that it cannot deal with more complex constructions. Okay, when the constructions of sentences are linguistic constructions, when they are more complex, especially those involving two verbs and syntactic embedding, then it becomes a really problem. Okay, it cannot that use cannot be made, the meaning cannot be then made actually on the uses of such complex constructions. Okay, and it cannot specify how generalization process is to be constrained. Okay, and then we say that it does not deal with the so-called poverty of stimulus. All right, this poverty of stimulus, this is very much there in linguistics, but let me explain it again to you people. You can see there. All right, poverty of stimulus is the controversial argument from from linguistic. Remember, what is it? That children are not exposed to rich enough data within their linguistic environment to acquire every feature of their language. This is considered evidence contrary to the empiricist idea that language is learned solely through experience. So you just cite that poverty of the stimulus means stimulus is not the only solution given to children for learning the full language in depth. I mean that if you give children to rich linguistic data, right, with their within their environments, and you think that every feature of their language will be achieved. So that is actually wrong, and so it comes in contrast with the empiricist idea that language is learned solely through experience. Okay, so this is something regarding actually usage based, but anyhow, the conclusion actually of this the final point is that language is a complex adaptive system. I mean, God has given a very adaptability to the humans for language learning that comprises the interactions of many players, means that people who want to communicate and a world to be talked about. So it operates across many different levels, different humans configurations, and different time scales. So taking out one of these levels, a different pattern emerges and a different conclusion is reached. But nevertheless, like other complex dynamic systems, there are many systematic actions that emerge to form the things that SLA theory should explain. What it means in simple words, we can say that language is basically a very complex phenomenon. There are there are myriad of other factors which involve. So you cannot wholly solely depend on a single pattern. Thus, we can say that there are certain theories in linguistic researches, which talk about different aspects of there, but there you cannot find a single whole theory and hypothesis which can perfectly can say all the things about a single aspect of language. So we can say that there are still things which are so I think this is the end of this today. I hope that by listening this again and again, this lecture, and by just reading it, and the points I'm giving you, so you will get a little bit stimulation from it. And these are actually the references. And so thank you very much for your thank you very much for your all that patience, because normally psycholinguistics lecture, they are very very difficult. So thank you very much, and hope that you will try to understand that. So nice of you. Thank you.